Hello again, dear 3D printer enthusiasts. Welcome to another episode of Stationeers News. It's 2024, October the 13th, and the amount of things to cover today is pretty extensive. Occasionally, you find an interesting bit of information in the beta changelog channel of the Stationeers Discord server. The rockstars working on Stationeers seem to be doing some fundamental things to how world atmosphere is authored and simulated. This may tie into the eventual world authoring changes for the upcoming finite handcrafted maps, when we'll no longer have procedurally created worlds, or at least the majority of a world would be made by an artist or community member, and for example ore distribution may become a mix of design for required travel and happenstance. This will have clear upsides, a more stimulating world layout, reason to travel, then potentially means to travel, rovers coming back, that's not decided yet. There could be pre-existing structures like on Lulan, since the calculation budget for a finite world can be planned. Oh, by the way, since the 16th of September, Stationeers has been having a new entry in the beta's drop-down menu, the pre-terrain version. It is recommended if you're playing on a modded world, since many things, not just the terrain, are currently in change. This is a reminder that since Stationeers is DRM free, you can always save a copy of the entire installation folder of whichever version you have on your PC, which I promptly did for all versions currently available. If you start a version and Steam is running during this phase, your in-game time will be counted, otherwise not. And I do recommend to do it like that. Even if you turn off Steam Cloud for Stationeers, which is a good idea, starting the game through Steam can take an extremely long time if you have many save games, because Steam idiotically still checks your files against the cloud. Try it, thank me later. Oh, another thing, if you run into trouble saving games with Stationeers, the reason most probably is Microsoft OneDrive. No, seriously, this has come up often on Discord. Stationeers begins the saving process, and then those temporary files can no longer be accessed because OneDrive is busy with them. So saving fails, just keeps going forever. May even prevent you from seeing your save games listed when you try to load one, though that bug may have been fixed by now. To no longer suffer the OneDrive problem, you can tell Stationeers to use a different path to save its games. This can be done manually in the setting.xml. Anyway, there will be a terrain update. As I'm sure you heard, CEO Dean Hall said most recently,
"The maps aren't going to be small. The current rough plan is for 8 × 8 kilometers, which is as big, for example, as the Icarus map."
But this definitely upcoming change is also controversial, because there are definitely downsides. You can never get truly lost again on a vast planet, and it will be less easy to have a really new world to play in, though arguably those were never really vastly different from each other, except of course if you changed planet. You can watch a recent news episode for extensive information on what the developers talked about there. The changes to how world atmosphere is implemented definitely already show benefits. Day and night temperature can now dynamically depend on the distance to the sun. Mars, for example, is now supposedly a little colder during the days when the sun is further away, and Vulcan can now sometimes reach day temperatures around 1000 degrees Celsius when it's closest to the black hole. But is there more on the horizon? Terms like GHG, greenhouse gases, should not matter to statically defined world gas compositions and Kepler orbits, whose behavioral curves and parameters are set at one time, and then you start a game in the so defined world. What role could greenhouse gases play? I don't want to stir the rumor mill, but at one point the devs didn't think much of the idea of terraforming in Stationeers. Then a community mod was created that did just that, and the developers were surprised by the significant success. So they now loosely plan to eventually release a full-priced expansion that will allow terraforming. Are the current atmospheric authoring changes in any way related to this elusive project? Turns out that's exactly what's going on, and that's indeed what Greenhouse Gas Index Curves for Global Atmosphere Gases is related to. Yes, the devs are paving the way for the terraforming expansion, whose purchase is, of course, an absolute no-brainer. We'll hear a bit more about this later in this episode. Similarly, there's gonna be some news about Rocketworks actually now preparing for even adding nuclear power to Stationeers. Those reactor mechanics would classically come along with actual in-world liquids, something that Stationeers in fact had at some point way before my time. And now it looks as if the devs are gearing up to returning this to the gameplay. The beta changelog says that they started with world liquids and with a particle concept-based solver for the behavior of flowing water. Interesting. Promising. That's words that come to mind. We want this, don't we? But it's far away still, isn't it? Well, at least Matty gave us a taste by posting this animated GIF. Yummy! Can you imagine broken pipes spilling chemicals into your station? Loose items going with the flow? Moisture damage to plants maybe? And definitely electrical hazards. Too bad it's gonna be quite some time before this will move from the developer's personal project into our beautiful Stationeers reality. Is the reasonable assumption at least. Or was. On the 11th of October, the new water system went live. Everybody can play this now, not just beta users. Here's the announcement article that Rocketworks posted.
Inworld Water, a new system that simulates and renders in-game fluids. Stationeers now has Inworld liquid simulations. Because of the phase change update, liquids became a major part of the game. They were allowed to exist in the world, but they were represented by a foggy steam effect, and they moved around in all dimensions just like a gas. The motivation behind realistic fluid movements is an expectation that the game created for itself. Stationeers has the best atmospheric simulation in gaming, and the game deserves to have fluid simulations accompanying it. Flowing water. Liquids now flow horizontally and preferentially pool downwards. Lower areas of your base will be prone to flooding when liquid pipes unexpectedly break, or conditions for phase change causes gas to condense around you. Fluids in World have an exaggerated volume to allow meaningful interactions with Inworld liquids to happen. It turns out it is difficult to collect enough ices to create thousands of liters of water while on a barren, lifeless world. Stationeers atmospherics operate as 2 by 2 by 2 meter cubes that update every half second. This presents limitations in terms of first-person fidelity and propagation speed. For liquids, we wanted to make sure they felt fluid enough to not feel too gamey. We got around many of the issues with grid-based spreading and flow by utilizing a new physics-based solver. We use a series of CPU-driven particles to represent and test paths that fluids want to take. These physics solver balls allow liquids to drop down ledges or get sprayed out diagonally to allow fluids to move multiple squares at a time, all without the limitations of our half-second tick grid atmospheres. We will also soon be utilizing the system to better implement smaller liquid interactions such as pipe bursts, sprinklers, and ice melting. Visual effects. All this time we've been saying liquids instead of water, and that's on purpose. All gases in Stationeers can condense into liquids. Other fluids such as liquid oxygen and liquid volatiles all look different in World. Unlike other games, we even allow separate fluids to mix, and we accurately blend their colors together to really inform you of the disaster that may be mixing underneath you. We've also worked significantly on creating effects that make liquids look cool while still matching Stationeers' scale and style. Water spreading has droplets that represent the physics solver fluid simulations. When water is spreading throughout already connected tiles, we analyze the volume, displacement, and directional mixing ratios to create flow effects on the surface of the water to represent its movement, direction, and rate. Buoyancy. All dynamic things except for entities such as players and chickens are buoyant. In the future, we might expand the system to have things have different buoyancy or make some objects not be buoyant at all. But during this first pass, everything behaves the same. Making fluids meaningful. Interaction. Representing fluids is important in of itself, but there are more gameplay systems we want to tie into. Vents are currently examples of devices that are aware of the surface level of the water and will only start mixing with liquids when submerged, as opposed to interacting with the whole grid as per usual. In the future, we'll be making more devices interact with the fluids specially, such as APCs, transformers, and batteries shorting out. Fluids do currently interact with terrain. However, there are lots of edge cases that might cause water loss or unexpected behavior. Once the new terrain system is done, we'll revisit how liquids interact with voxels and potential performance improvements. This could eventually lead to us supporting larger grid structures such as lakes or weather effects that reflect global condensation like rain. Liquid vac. Because liquids don't behave like gases, small puddles often are left behind when draining areas. We've added the liquid vacuum as a way to allow players to manually interact with in-world water. It has two modes, inwards and outwards, so you can manually relocate water to another place in the world. We originally had it operate with liquid canisters that could be switched out. The balance of canister sizes for our gameplay reasons prevented it from being super useful. In the future, we plan to look for more solutions, such as being able to attach to a dynamic canister and having a gas vacuum variant as well. Manual floor hatch. While testing fluids flooding many of our bases, we kept wanting something that felt like a horizontal version of the manual hatch door. So we've added one, so you can unwittingly spin the hatch wheel and dump a flood of water on yourself.
So that's it. That's the official announcement by Rocketworks. Now let's take a look at what all this means in practice. Here we go. Inworld liquids, playable in everybody's public version right now, with at least daily improvements at this point in time for the beta channel. Some things have to be figured out still. For example, a world box can hold 8,000 liters of water, which is realistic. But our daily handling of liquids and Stationeers usually does not deal with amounts that would be interesting for this gameplay-wise. So the devs introduced a hack. The amount represented in the world is multiplied by a factor, which is currently 50. With this multiplier, it's roughly 10,000 moles of water to fill one world block. About 10 full stacks of ice. With the realistic volume instead, we would need like 500 stacks of ice to fill one grid. Anyway, I can't fathom how fast this happened. It was only about 2 weeks from nothing to this, and with no foreshadowing at all. If you want to try this out, you could for example use creative to place a liquid tank, use the spawn gas console command to fill it, and then just deconstruct it. Immediately, a huge flood of liquid will move through your base in a roughly realistic fashion, until it has pooled in the lowest sections and thus no more liquid should be found on the surfaces higher up. But that's not all. The devs are currently crunching planetary atmospherics to make the emergence of standing water in the world possible. This is part of the work for the full-price terraforming expansion that I'm sure we are all looking forward to. The simulation will allow for evaporation, condensation, and freezing in the global atmosphere. This will mean that we can create water worlds and worlds that change their atmospheric composition throughout the course of the year or day due to phase change. So yeah, with that background, greenhouse gas index curves for global atmosphere gases makes a lot more sense. Now coming to beta, the global atmosphere of the world we're playing in will now have a fixed volume. Yes, you heard that right. Instead of interactions with world atmosphere ultimately just vanishing into the infinite, the amount of gas in reality will now be finite. The content, so to speak, will also be in the save games. What's more, the global atmosphere will now be simulated in a way that phase change can occur, freezing and liquefaction. If there is freezing, this will for now just bluntly be accounted for ice caps, and liquefaction will go into the ocean account. Currently, this simulation is not exposed to the player. The dev team will try to find ways to express phase changes in the global atmosphere to us via storms and other visualizers. I have trouble deciphering how they want to pull off a terraforming expansion with this in mind, since this sounds as if we're already getting one. But not only may the teeny-weeny activities of ours not actually affect the ginormous bathtub of reality in a meaningful way, so that special terraforming machinery would be required to have an impact, but also, if we think of the game Planet Crafter, the way in which the planet will visually change may also be exclusive to that expansion. But this is just me thinking out loud, nothing more. In an earlier news episode, I talked about future plans like terraforming, but nuclear power was also on the table, which is even more firmly planned, though the details of it are still widely open. The devs consider, for example, to have a slot-based system for control rods, like we know it from classic nuclear reactors. Building a reactor will be like building a rocket, an aggregation of a number of small grid-based devices, and it will require a culmination of Stationeers' atmospherics know-how. Supposedly, a lot of design work has already been done, but the devs want to see how the Inworld liquids shake out in practice regarding all the systems in the game, for example electricity, and how people make use of this beautiful new addition. Once the dust has settled, and you bet, more updates on this front will be happening. They'll pursue nuclear. By the way, these beautiful 3D renderings you're seeing were made by Stationeers community members, but I've been given permission to use them here. Allegedly, an actual nuclear engineer has reached out to the devs to aid with their work on nuclear power. Rocketworks are super ambitious about their projects. There's multiple games in the works, one of which a 3-letter abbreviation with the so far private Discord server to which I was able to grab the temporary invite when Rocket posted it. I don't want to give anything away, since that seems to be indeed the idea here. But late September they were, for example, looking to hire a mathematician with a PhD and a astrophysics background. You do the math. Man, I hope the future looks bright and stable for Rocketworks. They are the golden template of game dev. And they even have great games in the works. It seems the only thing wrong here is the rest of the world. What with the gaming market being in a deep crisis and studios drowning left and right. Which sucks. Both of which brings us to the Liquid Vacuum, a new handheld tool in Stationeers. It doesn't have much volume, but Rocketworks' announcement already covered that. There may be canisters or something else in the future. Currently, it's kinda like your mouth trying to fix the aftermath of a leaking dishwasher. Also, and I have trouble believing this, though for all the praise that the devs deserve, I must say I'm kinda used to their weird prioritization now. That doesn't fix the primary window into the Stationeers reality, but keeps building new things inside said reality. There is still no hotkey for switching the mode. To change the direction of the Liquid Vacuum, you have to push the button in its inventory. Why not have a hotkey? It could also change the mode of the mining drill, or finally select between the two cartridges of the goddamn advanced tablet. I also haven't seen any mention of the now 2 months old kick-ass feature that you can just click the right mouse button to teleport items to and from your hands. The Stationeers user interface is the one most contestable aspect of the entire glorious product. And here we have a simple, powerful, easy, doesn't get in the way usability booster that they snuck in, but they are not even mentioning it anywhere. Did you know? Of course you knew, what am I saying? It was on the news. Anyway, the point is, we've been waiting for a hotkey to switch modes, for example the new flashlight's power, for a long time. And we're still waiting. Similarly, us YouTube wankers would like a smooth camera in Stationeers that I, as a 4 decades programmer, know is a simple thing to add. And from that day forth, any and all playthrough videos have the option to be more elegant and much less taxing on the observer. Viewers could even estimate where the camera will end up looking by the way you accelerate and brake it on the way there. So instead of being tossed around in the carousel helplessly every minute of the hours-long videos, the viewers would almost be co-pilots. Ah man. So many things in the world that should be different but aren't. Where was I? Liquids in Stationeers. Currently, water just seeps out of reality through the imaginary cracks of the soon-deprecated terrain system. The devs have no firm plans yet as to how this will work once it's properly implemented, but man, look at the things on the horizon. Surely, but not yet programmed, nuclear power. Standing water, necessary to allow heating it with radioactive material, finally giving the incredibly pollutant-rich uranium a purpose. To drive yet to be created steam pressure generators. Yes, we are still running our cities on steam generators these days, that hasn't changed. Probably terraforming at some point. Water leaking into our rooms. Maybe with electrocution or shortcut hazard potential. Or could we possibly drown in our sleep if a pipe bursts due to poor engineering? We have to keep in mind that these developers who work quasi-tirelessly on the incredible phenomenon of Stationeers are not getting paid by the game, but by other projects of the Rocketworks studio, like Icarus or even DayZ, which was Dean Hall's mod for Arma, which is the reason that we now even have Stationeers in the first place. A new beta version multiple times a week, an actual novelty being introduced into the game. Not just some tweaking, debugging or some occasional new designs like other studios may do it. All this without proper financing. That's why the devs have just now published new DLC. It's nothing to be excited about, it's clearly and solely just a way for us to help finance the team and to give back to their ongoing tangible efforts. You get one interactive bobblehead for almost €13, and there are 3 of these DLCs: EVA suit, hard suit, and marine. Nobody should get their panties in a bunch because of these. They are meant as donation buttons, plain and simple, except you get a receipt, so to speak. One that you can spray paint and give a name to. But if you really want to give to the project, in my opinion it's best to buy another copy of the game that you can gift to someone else. The player base is still rather small, and once it has grown sufficiently, it will kind of automatically grow. I can observe that with my tiny German and nicely going English YouTube channels. The former is 99% stagnant if I don't upload fresh content. The latter keeps adding new subscribers daily, even if I'm forced to take a break. This is how I imagine the Stationeers player base to develop once it has become large enough. We have to become an infectious disease. So much so that YouTube would add its chilling Ministry of Truth notes to the videos. Hey wait, what's that? Stationeers is now available on itch. You will even get a Steam key in addition, so you could gift that to another player. The indie gaming platform itch.io was founded in 2012 by hobbyist programmer Leif Corcoran to distribute his own creations, and it saw a serious takeoff in 2015, which was followed by a desktop client in 2016 and reached 5 million game downloads by 2017. Itch.io uses a pay-what-you-want model for both customers and developers. devs can set a min price for games, but purchasers can choose to pay extra. Who in their right mind would ever do such a thing, you ask? Apparently you don't own a bobblehead. Not only do people now buy Stationeers on itch, but one generous fella actually paid $100 for it. Since 2015, itch.io allowed developers to set the revenue they hand over to the website. 10% is the default, which is way below the almost 50% Rocketworks loses on Steam, and insult is added to injury because it takes several months for the money to arrive. But on itch, devs can set any amount, yes, even 0%. That is literally nothing. Itch.io is often thought of as a place for beginner developers, but that's probably wrong. See, if a vast ocean of statistical data points exists, and most of these are lower level because the entry barrier is low, does that make all the high-level data points non-existent? As opposed to Steam, on itch the store pages are highly customizable. Now personally, as a heavy gaming consumer, I do like the catalog-like neutrality of Steam's store where everybody is created equal and the efficiency of the customer's browsing experience is maximized, where the customer is king. Though we're rather despots by now, enabled by Steam's monopoly position, killing game studios by the dozens with the low prices and high fees, which is one of the reasons we're currently in the process of experiencing a crash. But again, the neutral catalog-like concept is something I personally dig a lot. The ultimate rule for any successful business, actually the ultimate cosmic rule, is thy will be done. If you give the potential customers what they want, they become actual customers and will contribute to your existence with money and ultimately power. So if they desire to be somewhat capable of getting a grasp of the ocean of available games, then giving them a clear-cut catalog style would make this will of theirs more a reality than instead exposing them to what would effectively be thousands of different websites with their own individuality, to which you first have to attune your mind and information digestion every time. That's tiresome. It's good for presenting your game, but it's bad for being found in the ocean of games. Users would already have to know where to go. I need to clarify. itch.io's browsing and filter features are definitely very capable, almost on the level of Steam's multiple different browsing perspectives, and in some ways superior, since they are URL-based, so you can make sure to never lose your filter setting. Steam's filters are still so buggy that even after 21 years of service, your meticulously defined choices can be forgotten by something as simple as scrolling a bit too far. That said, when I used itch.io's tag search today to find games that have simulation, are 3D and first person and survival and space, Stationeers did not even show up in the very short list. I guess their product page doesn't yet have the text set up properly. Already sent Matty a comment. So it seems as if itch.io, as cool as it is, rather tries to be a shop window kinda environment than a catalog reminiscent of a database, the latter of which I fervently prefer. For example, one of the first Java programs I wrote was a manager for my Steam games so that I could use tags, a type of feature that is by now normal in the Steam library. Making information discoverable is part of my daily bread. One of the reasons I use the free software Everything. Yes, is literally called Everything and is the first search hit when you Google for this very generic word, which should tell you something. Everything from voidtools.com instantly gets me to any and all files and folders on the computer I work with. Configure a hotkey and instantly find that document you just heedlessly saved to an unknown location. Or anything else really. Check it out, it is bound to change the way you work with files and organize your data. Of course you hear claims like these a lot. You assume these are not important words, which, if you'd really listen to them, would lastingly improve your PC life tangibly. And in a case like this, you're missing out then. I don't want you to be missing out on this. It's really the ideal form of file finding, pure and instant and uncluttered, and the scan for millions of files takes only seconds, something you have probably never seen before. Please take a look at this piece of software. Its only downside is that a shared computer will probably let your fiancé in on your choices of entertainment. They are not sponsoring me, just like Rocketworks aren't. I just love the product, and in both cases with good reason. Anyway, regarding game stores, we could argue back and forth which one is better, an easily browsable catalog or a shopping mall with individualized store pages whose style focuses on the respective product. But let's skip all that and ask, why not both? Games could have cold digital matter-of-fact database information and a personal touch store page with little fluffy clouds. The former makes sure that you find the latter. Without the former, you have to rely on word of mouth to link you directly. I have very little experience with itch.io, so I'm sorry if I'm misrepresenting this otherwise pretty awesome seeming platform, but I do get the feeling that itch.io could benefit greatly if its prized individuality and outstanding freedom would be complemented with a host of clinical facts shown in each catalog entry in always the same minimalist style and always the same locations, because apart from the desire to feel and enjoy the potential gem found on the site, the user's primary will, after all, is to efficiently absorb information about the many considered titles. Again, the goal always is, thy will be done. It's the cosmic law and it's the law of successful business. They want to find, and they shall find. Those want to be found, and those shall be found. Let's bring what people desire and what developers created together. Isn't that what everybody wants? So isn't that then also an exciting endeavor to undertake? It seems like a missed high priority not to have a brilliant, clear, easy-to-use catalog if your goal isn't just to host, but also to relay, etc. Let's see what Mr. Hall has to say about Stationeers on itch.
Stationeers is now on itch. For a long time we have been talking about bringing Stationeers to the itch store. We like this storefront because it adheres to our philosophy of forever games. Some time ago we stripped out the requirement for Steam API to run the game, meaning if you pirate the game or Steam stops working someday, then the game will continue to run just fine. We want to make games that outlast the studio and even the technologies used to make it. We also lose some significant amount of the money we make on Steam to Steam and other fees. Each purchase made on Steam ends up with roughly 50% of it coming through the studio several months later.
Dude, 50% only and several months later.
On itch, this is much better, with itch setting the default at 10%. They also allow lots of great ideas like allowing customers to set their own prices. Personally, I want to see our industry innovate much more on how we price and run our games. We need to pay fair wages to our staff, and we need to price things fairly. We need to avoid dangerous pricing practices because games can very quickly get into complex patterns of behavior, especially when it comes to children and young people. The studio has a view that we should always tell the pilot the condition of their aircraft, so we try and give you all the view about decisions we make as best as we can. This sometimes means disappointing you by saying we can't do something or pricing something higher than feels good. Please consider supporting itch. We have been working at getting Stationeers on itch for a long time, and I'm really glad that finally we can launch it there.
Personally, I wonder what the reason for the delay was.
If you buy the game on itch, you receive a Steam key. Unfortunately, the Steam key won't count for review score on Steam, but you can use that key to gift it to someone who might like Stationeers. If itch works well for us with Stationeers, I am quite keen for us to use it for future launches as well. What build is uploaded to itch? It is the same build that is uploaded to Steam, and it will try and work with Steam or anything else just the same. Our system is designed to be as permissive as possible, including still allowing pirated copies of games to access and play with others just as normal. In the future, we will be adding some settings you can change to give you access to all the DLC, so that if you need to pirate the DLC, say because Steam has fallen and or our company is out of business, you will not need special copies to do so. You will just be able to change a boolean. Spread the word. As much as we like Steam, I do not see how in the longer term we could, as it stands now, release another game like Stationeers. It is just too much of a gamble, and Steam changes things on a whim with no discussions with developers, in many cases with no changelog and us discovering things after the fact. Please help us in looking for other ways for us to make and deliver games like Stationeers in the future. You are key to this. Feel free to discuss this and other ideas with us here on Discord. You can ping me with an @ to help me see your messages, and you can also direct message me. Also, I do get a lot of DMs, so I cannot always respond to all of them. The itch store is a great way to support us. As I noted above, we get a significantly better margin on itch than Steam. Additionally, we have been able to directly discuss with itch about additional features we would like. I'm hopeful we can make Stationeers successful on itch, so we can make it worth itch working with us to add new functionality to the store.
This, by the way, is not so unreasonable an expectation, since Dean Hall also commented somewhere recently that at some point he contributed to Steam's own mod API. This was on the 26th of September. On the same day, only hours later, Rocket, which is Dean Hall's nickname, posted this.
Huge thank you to the person who just bought Stationeers on itch and changed the price, so they paid $100 for it. That is incredibly generous.
Yes, thank you to all the heroes who purchase DLC they will not actually lean into or that may even be purely decorative. You make the simulated world go round. Game studios have a really hard time these days, also somewhat due to the extremely consumer-focused behemoth power of Steam and the large piece of the pie they take each time, which is fueled by us, the wishlist discount watchers. I don't feel guilty for doing that, maybe because the inside of my responsibility has trouble sinking into this mental soil solidified by an attitude of entitlement, possibly greed, and definitely the conviction that my actions only affect my living room. But isn't it just like real-world littering? The only way to end such a phenomenon is for every single person to stop themselves from littering and trying to ignore hard that others will keep doing it. Now on the matter of bobbleheads, I appreciate anyone who gets them, but I have decided not to get them myself. I'd get some decals like warning signs for electrical hazards, radiation, high voltage, pollution, heat, etc. But I don't want a stationary Easter egg looking thing that instead of moving us away from the lingering goofiness of the human characters that, I'm sure, must have turned quite a few unknowing shoppers from this page of the catalog. Do you expect to find a serious, deeper than all space reality survival simulation when what you see on the store page are those guys? I mean, if you didn't have any clue yet. No, right? And those bobbleheads go a bit in that direction, a direction from which I desire Stationeers to rather move away. Still, the project needs money, so bobbleheads it is then. But not for me, thanks, and with good conscience. While the majority of videos I've been recording about Stationeers the last 10 months were simply playthroughs, aka me having fun while getting to talk your ears off and filling the channel with material, a lot have been decidedly helpful guides, and recently I even turned to properly editing my videos, which costs a ridiculous amount of time, during which I don't play any game, not even Stationeers. That's why you will keep seeing those lazy playthrough videos every once in a while. I wanna have fun, man. Okay, then there's hardware time and electricity. What's more, I just obtained the studio license for my video editor. Seriously, it's quite more than just that. DaVinci Resolve for €300, which for the extreme feature richness isn't steep, but subjectively it's still something. I expect most of my future videos to still deal with Stationeers, so I hope Rocketworks and community growth is gonna benefit. Not an unrealistic hope. According to comments, I've caused at least 4 additional purchases of the game. Who knows what the real numbers are, or will be. Okay, for those who sat through all this rambling, here's a little bonus. Rocketworks out of the blue added a new type of door. It's part of the kit doors, and it's a manual hatch for the floor. Finally, we can have vertical shafts that can be closed. Personally, I wanted to have an electrified one for the longest time, so that you could dump a bunch of chickens on unsuspecting base visitors. But this neat manual hatch already comes in handy. Liquids, like other Atmosphere 2, can't pass through it. And as you can see, we can even place ladders here. Oh well, that's all for today. You are now released to return back into the garden of unearthly delight. See you again next time.
Good readback.
And TDR, so safety is currently green, and we will not need to hold a T-5.
Copy.
C5 is good 5 code.
PM M&O, RF parameters are nominal, and TM slot.
18 is good 5 code.
Check 170, 172.
PLC check.
TMRC.
7.1.
Go ahead.
Radars have a good 5 code.
Thank you, sir. Check 177.
This is TD on channel 1. I want to provide a quick poll for everyone involved
3 has good 5
to
turn.
forego the T-5
5 code, and we're going to turn for
SRPO, do you
scan.
concur? SRPO concurs. RSO, do you concur?
I concur.
PM?
PM concurs. Thank you.
M&O? M&O concurs. RC?
RC, yes, sir. RC. RC concurs.
MM? MM concurs.
ACS, check 174, 175.
Check 178. PLC check 171. RSO, can you report if the surveillance aircraft is clear of the hazard pattern?
Yes, we believe it's clear, but we want SC to confirm as well.
SCTD on 1, can you confirm the surveillance aircraft are clear of the hazard area?